Why was it that you and your colleagues became interested in the topic of parents and early learning?
We became interested in this topic because we know the importance of parenting during the early years for children's academic skills and, long-term life skills. So we know the importance of that, and we wanted to know, so what kind of things are parents doing at home before kids go into, elementary to help their kids be prepared for school.
Tell me a little bit about your hypothesis. Did you have something in particular that you wanted to look at?
One of the things that we wanted to explore, this study was more exploratory. And we wanted to know is, we know that book reading is really important for children, and we know that parents should be reading books to their children from very early on. But we also know that parents sometimes don't have the time. It's a really busy schedule. They don't have the financial means to buy the books, or they don't have the reading levels to actually read a book with them. So then we thought, okay, if they can't or they don't want to read books, what other things can they do at home to help their kids with their literacy and their math? And then we thought, well, one thing that all families do is they go grocery shopping, they cook, they eat at home, or they eat out. So these are routines that we all do, that we all engage in as families. And when you engage in these routines, you're actually practicing your literacy and your math. So let's say that you go grocery shopping. What do? Well, you have to make a list or jot down in a piece of paper what you're gonna get, right? And as you go to the store, you read the labels, you count, okay, I need 5 bananas, but I only need 2 of the apples, so you're counting, you are reading labels. You might be also calculating, okay, so how much money am I going to have to pay? So you are practicing your literacy and your math. And so if parents are engaging children in these routines, children are also learning literacy and math as they participate in these everyday routines.
Are these intuitive for parents? Do they speak these things out loud naturally? Or is it something that they should be aware of? Could you give us some specific tips for parents?
Actually, in the study that I conducted, we wanted to know, what do parents spontaneously do? We're not going to tell them anything. We're just going to say, for this particular study, what we asked them to do is pretend to go grocery shopping with your child. You're going to make a list, and then you're going to use the list to shop at the pretend store. And we videotaped them. That's all the instructions we gave them. So they could help as much as they want or as little. And what we did is we look at what kind of strategies do parents use to help their kids, and how much do they take over or let the child do their own thing. So those were the 2 things that we looked at. And then we found really interesting relations between what parents do in this particular grocery game and children's reading and math skills.
Can you tell me a little bit about what you found?
What we found is that parents who allow their child to make the list and to read the list, rather than taking over and making the list for the child or reading for the child, have children who 1 year later have better reading skills. And this was impressive because we're talking about what parents do in kindergarten matters for children's school achievement in 1st grade. Even when you control, so what we did is we control for a number of factors that we know are related to reading comprehension. For example, child age, parents' income, whether the child went to preschool or not. And even when we control for all this, we find that if parents engage in these strategies, children will have better reading skills. So one strategy was whether they take over or not. And the other strategy that we looked at was whether parents were helping their child with spelling and with letter sound correspondence. So those kinds of strategies also help children with the reading skills 1 year later.
There was another term, directiveness. Mm-hmm. If you could just explain what that is.
Directiveness is the extent to which parents take over the child's activity or let the child, do the activity. And I know that for all parents, this is really hard for us to do, right? Because we want to help so much that we sometimes, do a little bit more than we have to. what we see is those parents who, allow the child to just make a list. And if the child says, well, I don't know this, well, how can we do it? Should we write it down? Should we make a picture? If they give them choices and if they let the child be the one writing rather than them writing for the child, these kids, of course, they practice more their letters, their numbers, and therefore later on they have better academic achievement.
Some specific tips again that parents can do.
The number one tip would be that we're not saying don't help your child, but we're saying help your child, but allow him to make decisions to grab the pen or the marker and write, even if the child doesn't do it well or wants to use a different color or something like that. Allow the child to practice, because the more they practice, the better they will get at writing and reading. The second recommendation that I would give is before you go grocery shopping, ask your child to help you make the list. You need the list because you need to remember what to buy. How about you involve your child and he helps you to write at least some of these things that you need at the store. And then when you go to the store with your child, then ask your child to actually help you find those food items on the store. So that's going to be a fun thing for them to do rather than them, getting bored or saying, Mom, I want this or that. You can tell them, well, you're going to help me find what is on the list. Oh, we have milk. How about you go and find the milk, right? So it's something engaging for the kids. The kid is actually reading the list and is understanding how writing and reading are actually part of the same process.
Is there anything at home while you're preparing for grocery shopping that can help with those math skills?
One thing is when you're making the list, you can also practice your numbers, right? So you could write the number, or you can, have 4 pictures of, the food item, for example, that you're writing about. You can also count. That's another thing that you could do. Or you can also do like what we call one-on-one correspondence. So you have a 4 here. That means that you have 4 items here. And that's actually one thing that children have to develop as part of their math skills, this ability to understand that if we write a number 4, that means that there are 4 items that are represented in that number.
In the grocery store, how can parents support math skills?
So one thing that they can do is, for example, we're gonna buy bananas. So how many are we in the family? Oh, we are 5, right? Because it's mom and dad and 3 kids. Okay, so then how many bananas do we need? 5. Okay, can you help me count those bananas? And so the child is counting. Or another thing that the child can do is compare quantities. So we're gonna buy 3 bananas and we're gonna buy 5 pears. Do we have more pears or do we have more bananas? So then they will do quantities. You can also think about calculating. If children are a little bit older, you can say, okay, so this costs $1, this costs $3. How much money do we have to pay?
If you could tell me a little bit about how the research was set up, Diana, how many children you had involved, how many parents, over what period of time?
We worked with 212 low-income parents. There were African American, Dominican, Mexican, and Chinese living in New York City. And their children were 5 years old when we started this study, so they were in kindergarten. And we asked them to come to the lab and to pretend to go grocery shopping with their children. And so we videotaped them while they are playing, and then we looked at what kind of strategies do they engage in. Later on, so 1 year later, when children were in 1st grade, we went to their schools and we assessed their children's literacy and math skills to see how much growth there was from kindergarten to 1st grade.
Was there anything that was surprising to you and your colleagues?
Absolutely. One thing that was really surprising is that we found that these strategies are related to better reading skills regardless of the family's background. So regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their income, regardless of the language that they spoke at home. So what this means is that these strategies are actually effective or helpful for parents from different backgrounds, which is actually pretty powerful.
Just a little bit about your background, where you got your undergraduate degree, master's degree, advanced degrees.
I did my undergrad in Bogota, Colombia, where I'm originally from. And then I came to the US to do a PhD in developmental psychology at Clark University in Worcester, Massachusetts. And then I did a postdoc at Harvard University and worked there for 5 years. And then I went down to the south to Davidson College, which is in North Carolina, and I've been there for 6 years. And starting this year, I'm going to be in Pittsburgh.